Teaching building, stairwell. Meng Chao leans against the handrail, head tilted back at a 45-degree angle, in a pensive pose. He gazes deeply at the girls in short skirts walking up the stairs, laughing and chatting. Their calves, round and smooth, tremble slightly beneath their knee-high white cotton socks. Are you looking for death? The great white bear Chu Feixiong yanks him from behind. If you really want to look, just pretend you're not interested and steal a few glances. How can you stare at them so fixedly? You're such a rogue. Fat bear, you don't understand. A layer of vicissitudes clouds Meng Chao's eyes as he laments with a hint of humble bragging. Only at this moment do I realize that the life we once took for granted is actually so beautiful, worth sacrificing everything to protect. Meng Chao, I truly admire you. Every time, your showboating is so fresh and refined. Chu Feixiong pulls him aside. Stop looking. If you want, I can lend you the latest study materials I downloaded. Let's talk. Did you really kill Demon Yen in your dream and bring Dragon City to its ruin? And what about me? Did I become a great general and fight until the final moment? This great white bear had harbored a dream since childhood, to become a majestic great general, commanding Dragon City's iron torrent to sweep across the other world. Of course, this was the dream of every Dragon City youth. What do you mean brought to its ruin? I only saw a few fragmented images. As for you... Meng Chao stared at his best friend's large face, searching the depths of his mind. Past life memories were like butterflies dancing in a storm, mottled and elusive. The feeling of a hangover resurfaced. He couldn't capture clear details. Just as he was about to give up, a bolt of lightning suddenly illuminated his mind. Accompanied by a piercing headache, he saw it. Deep within the clouds, Meng Chao saw gargantuan monsters unlike anything ever seen before, resembling slowly moving hills grinding toward Dragon City. He saw countless soldiers and citizens charging forward like a surging tide, only to collapse and be crushed like water hitting a giant rock. Meng Chao jolted awake from the nightmare again. Clutching his chest, he slowly sat down on the steps, drenched in cold sweat. Even the girls running past, playing and chasing each other, could not divert his gaze. Meng Chao hesitated. What could he say? Should he tell his best friend that in the nightmare he never made it into military school, let alone became a general, but was merely a grunt on the front lines? That the monster war was about to escalate, with larger, more numerous, and even more ferocious beasts emerging incessantly? That Dragon City would suffer heavy losses in this battle, including Chu Feixiong? That countless soldiers and citizens would be sacrificed, and numerous powerhouses would fall? That they had preordained a destructive end before even leaving the newbie village? Even his mom and dad. Meng Chao didn't dare think further. This wasn't the future. It was just a damned nightmare. To change everything, he had to start with the high school graduation exam. Meng Chao snapped back to reality. Fat bear, remember? My dream was to get into an undergraduate program and become a transcendent, while yours was to enter military school and become a general. It was said that back in the Earth era, getting into an undergraduate program wasn't too difficult due to university expansion. But after Dragon City's traversal, faced with resource scarcity and various crises at the brink of survival, all citizens had to fulfill their duties. Youths also had to compress their education time to enter work and combat positions earlier. The ideal for ordinary citizens was to get into a 2-year vocational college for professional training and find a good job. As for undergraduate programs, they only train transcendents. No matter now or in the future, transcendents are the pillars of Dragon City's dominance in the other world, and hold an exalted status, receiving deep respect from all citizens. Whether in politics or the military, whether as powerful tycoons or superstar celebrities in the spotlight, 9 out of 10 are transcendents. To shatter the horrific images seen in his nightmare, Meng Chao must become a transcendent. The great white bear Chu Feixiong extended his fist towards Meng Chao. It wasn't once upon a time, it was just yesterday that we both said it. Since you, this big idiot, have really made up your mind to go for a final 50-day sprint before the high school graduation exam, your buddy will definitely help you. Meng Chao took a deep breath and also extended his fist, bumping it heavily against Chu Feixiong's. Enter military school, become a general. Get into an undergraduate program, become a transcendent. The two brothers strode back to the classroom. A next period was literature class, and the students were jubilant. Great! We finally have literature class next. Quick, quick, quick! I want to recite the Ballad of Mulan. I want to recite Moonlight over the Lotus Pond, and I want to analyze the creative background and deep meaning of a madman's diary. I can't wait. Literature teacher? Where is our dear literature teacher? The students wait expectantly. Unfortunately, they didn't see the teacher. Instead, they were met by the icy face of the monitor, Zhuohaoren. Teacher Huang is sick today. Zhuohaoren stood on the podium and said, "This class is changed to self-study. Everyone, line up quickly and follow me to the cultivation room." No way. Not this again. I want Teacher Huang. Give me back my literature class. The expected bad news triggered a burst of Wailing Dragon City is a lone force in a foreign land and implements an iron-blooded education system. From kindergarten to university, combat-focused physical education, cultivation classes, and fighting courses take up more than half of the schedule. Mathematics classes for calculating ballistics and sword trajectories, biology classes for studying monster structures, and physics and chemistry classes for refining crystals and otherworld minerals all carry significant weight. With limited time, literature classes, which cannot directly increase combat power, can only be repeatedly reduced. By now, high school students only have 2 literature classes a week. During the final sprint for the high school graduation exam, these 2 literature classes must give way to the main subjects. Thus, the literature teacher can only get sick or ask for leave every few days, giving the class time to the gym teacher or leaving it for self-study. Rarity makes things precious. These days, high school students are breathless under the weight of heavy cultivation. Everyone loves literature class more than words can say. It's heard that back in their ancestral home, Earth, peers could have 10 or 20 literature classes a week, recite hundreds of ancient poems, do several sets of literature exam papers daily, and write compositions of 2,000 or 3,000 words. On the contrary, physical education was optional. Those were such happy days. You can hide a literature paper and secretly enjoy it in the intervals of cultivation. Complaints aside, high school seniors have the awareness required for their grade level. The students could only slowly and reluctantly stand up. Quick, quick, quick! Be nimble with your movements. Zhuohaoren stood with his hands behind his back, shouting with considerable authority. In this era, the monitor has great power and must assist the teacher with many management tasks. I really can't stand this kid's showboating. The great white bear curled his lip while lining up. Zhuohaoren is too shameless. His strength reached the standard of the rocket class long ago, yet he insists on staying in our ordinary class as the monitor. Do you know why? Why? Meng Chao asked. Returning from the nightmare, his memories were chaotic, and many things remained a blur. The school has a rule. Since being the monitor takes up a student's time and energy, the school provides a certain amount of cultivation resources as compensation. It's an unwritten rule. And Zhuohaoren's uncle happens to be the dean, the macaque, who naturally made sure everything was handled perfectly for his nephew. Chu Feixiong explained, his anger rising. That guy's family owns a massive corporation. They've got the dean's connections and no shortage of gene medicines or monster materials. Yet he still insists on staying in the ordinary class as the monitor just to snatch resources from poor kids like us. There's truly no justice. Meng Chao remembered now. After his injury in the 10th grade, Chu Feixiong's strength in the class was indeed second only to Zhuohaoren. If the dean hadn't opened the back door for him, Zhuohaoren would have definitely moved to the rocket class. In Class 6, the Great White Bear would have had a great chance of becoming the monitor, gaining more resources and a better hope of getting into military school. No wonder he was so frustrated. You two in the back, what are you whispering about? You're wasting everyone's time. The monitor Zhuohaoren shouted mercilessly after hearing them. Chu Feixiong's brows knitted as he prepared to step forward, and Meng Chao held him back. Cultivation first. We have plenty of time ahead. The cultivation center was a 15-story building with over 40 specialized rooms for cultivation, restoration, and medical treatment. Its scale was 5 times that of the teaching building. Air was filled with the heat of youth, making one's blood boil upon entry. Since this was a self-study period, it was managed by the monitor while the teachers were away. At Zhuohaoren's command, students rushed toward various cultivation equipment. The clanging of barbells, the low growls of exertion, the whistling of punches and whip kicks, and the heavy thuds against sandbags formed a passionate song of struggle. This scene was both familiar and strange. This scene made Meng Chao sigh. When humans discovered spirit energy, the super energy of the otherworld, they learned to introduce it into their bodies to strike cells and unlock genes. Ancient cultivation was thus given a whole new meaning. However, poor in literature, rich in martial arts, remained a universal truth. Children of elite families grew up on milk sourced from powerful mammalian monsters. As they grew, they consumed secret medicines daily, applied special ointments, and even bathed in monster blood. They had the support of gravity pods, medical pods, and neural stimulation pods, along with the guidance of senior experts and scientific cultivation plans. For these favored children, becoming a transcendent was practically a foregone conclusion. For a poor kid like Meng Chao, standing out was as difficult as reaching the heavens. Without sufficient resources, burying oneself in hard work was like running a marathon after 3 days of fasting. It was pure suicide. Strengthening through contributions sounds great, but earning only 0.001 contribution points each time I pick up trash means even contracting all the landfills in the city wouldn't be enough. I still have to cultivate tirelessly. Meng Chao threw himself onto the cultivation equipment after just 2 movements. He was gasping for air. He was still so hungry his body, repaired by the seed of hope and awakened by the mighty bull technique, was like a fully reinforced main battle tank. It consumed dozens of times more fuel than an ordinary car. His big idiot best friend's 2 weeks' worth of living expenses had barely filled the smallest gap. How could he possibly withstand high-intensity cultivation? What a pity! Several girls sighed in their hearts as they watched Meng Chao slumped over the equipment, looking frail and weak. Having just seen him maintain the crouching dragon stance, they vaguely recalled his brilliance during his first 2 years of high school. They wondered if his outward easygoingness hid a deep-seated unwillingness to accept his fate. Meng Chao once had a chance to become a transcendent, but now he's destined to be just another face in the crowd, they thought, unable to help but feel a surge of sympathy. Meng Chao, if you're going to train, then take it seriously. If not, get lost and stop hogging the equipment. The monitor, Swahauran, barked, keeping a constant eye on him. This guy. The great white bear glared at the monitor, helped Meng Chao to a corner, and handed him a sports drink. Sit for a while and take it slow. I'm fine. Meng Chao shook his head, his sweat pouring like rain. Damn it, my physical condition is too poor. What have I been doing for the past year? The seed of hope can help me awaken skills, but it can't conjure power out of thin air. I need cultivation resources to fill my main battle tank with fuel. Meng Chao smiled bitterly. If he could have afforded resources, he wouldn't have spent a whole year in self-abandonment. You haven't trained for a year. You've probably even forgotten the basics of the mighty bull force, right? Chu Feixiong assumed Meng Chao was truly clueless and demonstrated the basic force exertion method with great vigor. Being a natural power type, his version of the mighty bull force was fierce and imposing. Meng Chao watched, his gaze revealing something peculiar. Chu Feixiong rubbed his head. Was it an illusion? He actually saw a hint of disdain in Meng Chao's eyes. Meng Chao, are you looking down on my training? The great white bear's face darkened. Force shouldn't be exerted that way. Meng Chao couldn't help but say. Chu Feixiong couldn't believe his ears. I treat you like a brother, and you're showboating to me? Don't misunderstand, I'm not targeting you, Meng Chao quickly explained. I'm saying that current force exertion methods are all garbage. Not exactly, but they are indeed a bit crude and not very scientific. This was beyond arrogant. The mighty bull force was a scientific force exertion method developed in year 35 of the new era by a research team led by the military expert Zhou Mang. They had studied the physiological structures of over a dozen level 3 monsters, such as the hammer beast and the savage horned beast. It integrated force exertion models of Olympic champions and mixed martial artists from the Earth era, undergoing 5 years of R&D in ergonomics labs. Its characteristics were being easy to understand, quick to learn, and extremely explosive. Besides stimulating blood and strengthening the body, it also triggered a massive secretion of growth hormones in teenagers and improved cell activity, offering great benefits for advanced cultivation. After over a decade of practice, it, along with the Ripple Force and the Dragon Snake Force, was designated by the Dragon City Education Bureau as one of the 3 mandatory force exertion methods for compulsory education. Yet Meng Chao claimed this set of methods was crude and unscientific? Brother, I think you've become exceptionally shameless this afternoon. Little did he know, Meng Chao wasn't boasting at all. War is the best means of communication between civilizations. When future Dragon City residents and other world powerhouses collided, their civilizations deeply penetrated each other. Humans utilize the wisdom of the otherworld to constantly improve Earth-originated industry, technology, and martial arts. Today's Mighty Bull Force is only the first version. In the future, through encounters with various bizarre otherworld creatures and deeper explorations of cells and genes through dissection, Dragon City's powerhouses will push the Mighty Bull Force to its second, third, Pro, and Plus versions. The ultimate version of the Mighty Bull Force not only increases the maximum output by 30%, but also fixes most of the bugs from previous versions where spirit energy would run wild in the blood vessels and neural networks. It shortens the muscle cooldown time after excessive expansion by 15%, greatly enhancing extreme punching power and combat endurance. By then, it is no longer just the Mighty Bull Force, but the higher-level Mighty Bull technique. Through the seed of hope, Meng Chao lit up his past life memories and awakened none other than the future's ultimate Mighty Bull technique. Let's go, follow me to the bathroom. Meng Chao's eyes flickered. They went up 2 floors and found the most secluded bathroom. Seeing no one around, Meng Chao stealthily opened a stall and signaled his best friend to enter. Meng Chao, what are you doing? The great white bear asked nervously. Don't be scared, take off your shirt and let me study your muscles. Meng Chao pulled and dragged his big idiot friend into the stall. Before the great white bear could scream, Meng Chao cut him off. Just now, when you were circulating the Mighty Bull Force to your ribs, did you feel a faint, aching bloat? Like power was about to leak out. Chu Feixiong froze, clutching his ribs with a grim expression. Also, analyzing your footprints, your lower body is unstable. But I've observed your leg muscles and tendons. There shouldn't be a major problem. Meng Chao pondered. When you kick off the ground, do you first feel a needle-like sting in your soles, and half a second later, it moves to your knees? Chu Feixiong was shocked. How did you know? Meng Chao smiled. You haven't mastered the essence of the Mighty Bull Force at all. At most, you're exerting 50% of your power. The remaining half has nowhere to go and runs rampant in your body, rebounding against your legs and soles, putting extra pressure on your knees and ankles. If you keep training blindly like this, at best you won't exert full power. At worst, you'll suffer from osteoporosis, joint aging, and long-term excessive cardiovascular pressure. This isn't cultivation, it's seeking death. Ignoring the toilet behind him, he looked quite like an otherworldly master. Chu Feixiong was stunned, and obediently let Meng Chao study his height, weight, limb length, body fat percentage, and muscle distribution. Meng Chao closed his eyes to calculate for a moment, and a series of future power exertion formulas surfaced in his mind. Opening his eyes again, brilliant light radiated from them. He held a sharpened pencil lead between his fingers. Come on, try exerting power again. As Chu Feixiong circulated the Mighty Bull Force, his muscles expanded, and his blood vessels protruded. Meng Chao suddenly poked him with the pencil tip. Chu Feixiong was about to cry out in pain, but instead felt a numb, electric sensation. A miraculous power was fine-tuning every strand of his muscles, every blood vessel, and every nerve bundle. The originally scattered brute force was now gathered together. What technique is this? Soon, the great white bear's expression changed from suspicion to pleasant surprise. Exerting power is so much smoother. Nothing hurts anymore, and it even feels like my strength has increased. This is all due to your years of hard practice. I'm just helping you find the trick to release your power completely. Meng Chao's pencil tip moved like a flying needle, becoming increasingly fluid. He poked him 300 to 500 times before finally coming to a stop. Meng Chao shook his sore wrist. Try a punch. The great white bear Chu Feixiong gathered all his strength. The sting from the pencil tip on his acupuncture points guided him into a slightly different posture. His muscles tightened to the limit. He seemed to shrink a size, but became sturdier, like high-density granite. A punch blasted out. Faint ripples appeared in the air, creating a sound like tearing cloth as it broke the air. Hiss! Chu Feixiong was startled by the sheer exhilaration of the strike. He had never thrown such a satisfying punch. It was like a mountain torrent, unstoppable. Though untested, he was certain this punch increased his limit by at least 3%. Increasing punch power by 3% with just a few minutes of adjustment. Meng Chao's methods could no longer be described as merely monstrous. Chu Feixiong's face was full of shock while he threw the punch. The fire at the corner of Meng Chao's eye, the seed of hope, glowed magnificently again. Sparks transformed into lines of text. Mentoring ordinary citizen Chu Feixiong in the basic skill, Mighty Bull technique. Learning progress, 10%. An ordinary citizen has grown stronger. The overall combat power of Dragon City has increased. Congratulations, your civilization has become more powerful. Contribution points plus 10. Meng Chao was surprised and delighted. The implications were profound. This means I don't have to pick up trash? As long as I teach future martial arts to current Dragon City citizens, it counts as a contribution to civilization. It made sense. A civilization's strength didn't rely on a single hero fighting alone. No matter how strong he became, he couldn't solo every monster and otherworld god or demon. But if he could become a gold medal mentor, even more capable than Demon Yen, and teach future martial arts to all citizens, making everyone 100 times stronger than in his nightmare, wouldn't they beat the crap out of those otherworld entities? So, this is the true meaning of contribution points. The stronger the civilization, the stronger I become. Thinking of this, the fire before his eyes shifted. Congratulations to the Hope Bearer for contributing more than 1 point to civilization. Please choose your first contribution reward. Option 1. Upgrade Mighty Bull Technique from Expert to Master. Option 2. Awaken a new skill. Basic Marksmanship or Ripple Technique. Detailed costs followed. Upgrading Mighty Bull Technique required 756 points. Awakening Basic Marksmanship required 3,100 points. Awakening Ripple Technique required 1,500 points. They are both part of the 3 basic force exertion methods. Why is there such a huge price difference between Mighty Bull Technique and Ripple Technique? Meng Chao remembered awakening the Mighty Bull Technique had cost him 3,500 points. Thinking carefully, the Mighty Bull Technique was a fierce, rigid style he hadn't practiced much since his injury. The Ripple Technique, however, was flexible and long-lasting, excellent for rehabilitation. Over the past year, while other cultivation had stalled, he had persisted with the Ripple Technique. Is it cheaper because I already know a bit of the Ripple Technique? Meng Chao mused. One was rigid, the other flexible. One an upgrade, one an awakening. Which to choose? He nodded and selected Basic Marksmanship. Was he kidding? Since it was a free gift, of course he'd pick the most expensive one. The rapid staccato of gunfire echoed in his mind, like a howling bullet storm. With a single thought, countless firearm structures and shooting essentials surfaced. Past life memories flashed before him like crystalline shards. He saw himself firing incessantly at all kinds of otherworld creatures, firing and firing. Some of these creatures looked as if an octopus had been forcefully stuffed into the belly of a roasted chicken, 100 times uglier than current monsters. In that instant, Meng Chao seemed to blast hundreds upon thousands of such monsters to pieces. His marksmanship experience skyrocketed, and a numb electric pleasure surged into every nerve ending, making him groan with pure bliss. Fat Bear, don't worry. I will definitely make sure you get into military school, Meng Chao promised. Seeing him with his eyes closed, a face full of intoxication and making strange noises, Chu Feixiong couldn't help but shudder. The big idiot, a student weighing over 200 pounds, shrank into the corner. Chu Feixiong looked at him as if he were a monster, feeling a hair-raising chill down his spine.